Alrighty, we are going to get started right off the bat here with our joint quarterly reporting and data validity strategy webinar here. So you all know me, or most of you know me. My name is Elaine Hinrichs. I'm the GIS Technical Support Lead and Trainer with the Center for Agricultural Conservation Assistance Training. I'm joined by Ben Moss, who's the GIS Specialist at CACAT. He's going to be giving the majority of the training. Ben and I work very closely on the ACAP GIS tools. We have a whole suite of tools, including the ACAP GIS Reporting Tool that we're going to be talking about primarily today. Ben and I also work with Mike Anderson of Spatial Information Technologies, Inc., Spatial IT, on these tools. He's our web consultant. And I'm going to turn it all over to Ben then. And Ben, you can just tell me when to advance slides.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. Good morning, everyone. Like Elaine said, we work together on ACAP GIS Reporting Tool together, and we're excited to share with you all a decent-sized update to the tool that we think will really help with kind of the overall accuracy and uniformness of the data that's in the ACAP GIS Reporting Tool. So we're calling it kind of the ACAP data validity strategy. You may hear like data accuracy, but really what we're looking for is to ensure that the data that's entered into the ACAP GIS reporting tool is as accurate and kind of up to date as possible. Now, the reason why we're doing this is we've noticed that since the inception of ACAP, which has been almost 3 years now, for those of you who have been working with ACAP the entire time, you know that the ACAP GIS reporting tool has evolved a lot over time, which is great. But now we're realizing that there are some older contracts that may not have all of the data that newer contracts have. So we're trying to kind of bring everything up to the same place once again here and start kind of moving forward fresh. So the way that this is going to work is we have a couple features that will alert the users of potential data issues. And we say potential because we're doing our best to expect what we think an issue is. And, there are some cases where that may not be an issue. So we want to, clarify that it's only a potential. And there is cases where like something is an issue and it really isn't. And we understand that, and we hope that you do too. And for the when, we have been working on this for a while, and we just published it kind of last night. So if you haven't been on the ACAP GIS reporting tool yet today, then you've never seen it before, but now it's in there. So when you go to the ACAP GIS reporting tool, you'll see these features that we're talking about. And now kind of just moving forward, we'll ask that you review the data accuracy for your county, and we'll show you how to do that here. So Elaine, you can move on to the next slide. So kind of like I said, the ACAP data validity strategy, we have a suite of new functions that are in the reporting tool with the intention of improving the quality and accuracy of the data entered into the GIS. And this is really important for correcting these, potential data issues for reporting purposes. We like to pull data out of the ACAP GIS and present it to, folks of different kind of, a lot of different people who are stakeholders in the ACAP program. And we really like to, be able to share with them the most up-to-date and most accurate data. And when you have some contracts that have that data and some contracts that don't, it makes representation of the ACAP program as a whole a little bit more difficult. So the first new feature of this ACAP data validity strategy is what we're calling kind of the data quality dashboard. You'll see it in the top left of the ACAP GIS reporting tool on the same toolbar where you open up your contracts list or open up a quarterly report. You'll see that new kind of calculator icon in the top left that's highlighted in red. When you click on that icon, the table that's on your screen here will appear. And it just gives you kind of a brief overview of the count of the potential issues that you may have. So you'll see that the first line is contracts with no start date. So if that number is 7 in this case, you'll know that you have 7 contracts that do not have a start date attached to them. And so you can go through and fix that. The same applies to the rest of them. There are a couple that transcend the contracts kind of line, and instead it's like BMPs in this case. So BMPs that have not been verified, that's on a BMP account, not just the contract account. It may if it's a little confusing, we'll explain it a little bit more in detail moving forward. So this just provides the users with that brief overview of kind of the sum of potential issues. And also we have the contracts, the number of open contracts and completed contracts at the bottom, just as a reminder. And then within the contracts list, you'll also see a new column in that table. And that column is labeled issue. And if there is an issue with a contract, you'll see a red highlight and the text yes in there. And if you hover your mouse over that red box, you'll quickly see a brief overview as highlighted here. It's like a tooltip. We call it when you hover your mouse over that red text box, so some text will show up. So if you want to just kind of quickly see, what each contract has, you can do this. And you will notice that a lot of contracts right now have a potential issue, and a lot of that is just because of new features that we've added to the ACAP GIS that weren't there when a lot of contracts were, first entered. So there will be a lot of red yeses for a short period of time here, but once you start fixing them and it becomes habit, hopefully we'll see a lot fewer red yeses. I just want to clarify that. You can move on, Elaine. And so we also added the same data that was in that hover pop-up is also populated in this potential data issues tab within the contract editor. So it's a more permanent space. You can open up the contract, navigate to the potential data issues tab, and see, in list form, those same issues that showed up in the highlight. So as you're going contract by contract, you'll be able to see what you need to fix. And then the nice thing about all of this is that it updates in real time. So if you see here, this contract is missing an address location. So you see that right now in the potential data issues. If you go back to the contract tab where you can fix that address location, it'll update in real time and that'll go away. And the number will also go down on that little dashboard. So you'll see it, you'll see that number dwindle in real time. So we hope that is kind of a incentive to doing this, watching that number go down. So we've outlined a pretty simple kind of workflow for resolving these issues. First off, and the way that this presentation goes kind of does that, right? So review the data quality dashboard, get a broad overview of where common issues may lie and how to rectify those, and then open the contracts list and see where exactly those issues are for each contract. And then you can hover over the red text or go to the potential data issues to see that for each contract, and then just correct the data, or if the data was never there, input that data so that it can be marked as then good. And like I said, the numbers will update in real time to confirm that has been successful. So now I'm just going to briefly run through kind of the list of these common data issues that we've picked out, and the red highlighting on these screenshots should kind of give you an idea of where to go to fix them. So the first one is a missing start date. This is the expected start date of the contract. So a lot of these are empty right now. So if you know that start date, or at least have an estimation of that start date, you can enter that in for old contracts. Next is the missing completion report date. This is on the deliverables tab of the contract. And this is the report, the date of completion of the contract as a whole, and when you'll change that project status up in the top left from contract to completed and save the contract. That's that date. And we've noticed that there are a lot of contracts that are marked as completed, but don't have that completion report date entered in there as well. Similarly, there's also a project completion date, which is just the date that the like kind of construction on the project was completed. So sometimes this may be on or around the completion report date, but also a lot of these have been left empty while the project status was changed to completed. So just adding those in to further provide us with details about each contract is really helpful. Missing address location. This is a new feature that we added a little while ago, and we haven't really fully introduced it, I think. So now is kind of the time that we're really, giving the documentation on how this works and why it's important. When you enter in a worksite address, first of all, I think we've been stressing this for a little while now, but it's really important that you use a complete address. So street number, street name, city, state, and zip code. We noticed in older contracts that may not have been the case. So standardizing that worksite address is really important, because when you click on that button with the red circle around it, that will do what's called a geocode, where it will read that address and try to place that on a map with a point similar to what you would do with, in a Google Maps or any other kind of GPS software. So if you don't have a city, state, a zip code, it's really hard to do that, because how many 1, 2, 3 main streets are there, right? So opening up that little pop-up that's circled in red will do its best to place a point on a map. And if that point is correct, there's a little button that says use this location. And if it's off by a little bit, or if it's off by a lot, you can move the red dot that populates the map and manually select the location. We have more documentation of this on our support site, and you can reference it there to figure out exactly how this all works. And we have more information on that as we move forward. Similarly, we have the worksite that may be missing. So this is where you'll go in and, kind of draw in the parcel boundary and where the worksite is in space on a map. This was kind of one of those things that when we first released the ACAP GIS tool, it was kind of incomplete. So now it's in its full form, and we expect folks to be using it. So there are some contracts that don't have these work sites right now. So we want them to have a work site, so we know exactly where each contract is, so we can make nice maps of how ACAP is distributed across the entire state. This is a new one too that we found just kind of looking through the data, and we just noticed that some BMPs are the units that we ask to be recorded simply is the number of that BMP. So like the count of the instances of that BMP. So for this example, we see the waste storage facility, solid, semi-solid. You'll see in the units column, the unit is just no, which stands for number. And in this example, the user probably entered the square footage or some, area value for that BMP, but the way that we report that is only by the instance of that BMP. So if there was one waste storage facility, that quantity in here would be 1. And you can add the actual area or however you want to measure it in the description. That's totally fine. But when it comes to the actual units and quantity, that whenever you see NO stands for number, that should be the discrete instances of that BMP, not any, kind of volume or area value. And that number, we have that as a threshold. We generally said, any number that's greater than 8, we kind of just, that was an arbitrary line that we said, if it's greater than 8, we may want to take a look at that. So if for some reason there is a BMP that, is installed 20 times on a project, you may get an error, and we have a button where you can just say disregard, I acknowledge that is truly accurate. The next one is missing planned BMPs. This is another thing that we kind of had and then got rid of and then added back. So some older contracts may not have this. The plan BMPs are really nice just to see, kind of how the contract started versus, how it ended, just to see if there are any changes so that we can track how contracts evolve over time, if we can pick up on any trends in there. So adding the plan BMPs is really helpful. And we've created a pretty simple workflow here that's very similar to, in the deliverables tab, the installed BMPs. So you just select the BMPs that are planned to go on that contract, and then they should copy over to the deliverables tab too, because we expect that most of the planned BMPs will be the same as the installed BMPs. And here we are, the installed BMPs. Some contracts have been missing installed BMPs, and these are really important for each contract so that we know exactly what the contract was spent on and how the contract was improving the property. So just clicking the add practice button, that'll populate this table, and then you can enter in all of the description and the units requested and whether the contractor or landowner provided the support there. So those are the issues that we've kind of determined for now. Like I said, there's more detailed instructions on the support site that we have. If you need the link, it's here, and it's also linked when you log in to the ACAP reporting tool. And we also have a more detailed tutorial on all of this data validity stuff. There's detailed instructions and screenshots on there. We do have a couple extra things related to this data validity strategy that we are going to incorporate. We just weren't able to get them done by this webinar, but you'll see them coming in the near future. The first being the other funding sources interface in the deliverables tab. We noticed that there were some issues with the data that was being entered there. So we're going ahead and cleaning up some of the options in the drop down there. And there were some ambiguous drop down options that had been used or created. So if you use those, you may get a message from the GIS team, and we'll just ask you to kind of clarify what was going on there, and so we can standardize it. Those are pretty few and far in between, but just know the other funding sources will be a little bit more robust in the future, and we may flag a couple funding sources that we have questions about. Another function that we're excited to release soon is kind of a farm operation type selection. So for each contract, you'll be able to add what the primary and any secondary operation types are. So you can select whether it's a livestock farm or a cash crop or whatever it may be. We'll be able to add that so that we just have a little bit more kind of demographic information about a lot of the farms that we're working with ACAP, and also a checkbox selection if the operation does any organic work. There's some curiosity about how ACAP may impact organic work and if there's expansion opportunities there. And the last thing is we'll start storing these values that we determined, like all of the values that are in the dashboard that we showed you. We'll start storing those just so we can keep track over time to see if there are persistent issues that maybe we need to work on how the workflow of entering contracts works. Hopefully we'll just start to see a steady decline in those values and kind of level off and stay at zero. So, but that'll be really helpful for us on the GIS development team, and maybe also for like managers to see how the staff is working with the data. So the next steps for the districts, we wanted to make sure that we release this still in the winter time when we hope that things aren't quite as crazy. We know that you're very busy though. So we'd like for at some point in the near-ish future to just kind of review the data that's in that dashboard and attempt to rectify any of these potential issues that we've found. You can use the tutorial on the ACAP site if it's at all confusing. If the tutorial doesn't seem to be answering your questions or anything, you can always extend questions to the ACAP GIS support email, and we'd be happy to help you out with that as well. So that concludes the data validity part of this webinar. Elaine's going to come in and speak a little bit more broadly about quarterly reporting as a whole for ACAP. But before we move on to that, while that data validity stuff is fresh in everyone's head, does anybody have any questions? You're more than welcome to unmute or drop them in the chat. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions.
Ben, I'm going to pull in a question we got from Rita. It was about the missing address verification, where address is marked in red, but it's got all the information. And my understanding is that we've marked a lot of things in red because we need the address verified for sure. Like, you might have actually all the correct information, which is great. But what we have seen is there can be still errors, and we want to know for sure exactly where that address is. And so we want you all to open up the pop-up and click use this location if it is correct. Because sometimes the geocoding process will put a point still in the wrong location. And so we want that like human verification that this is definitely the address of the project. And the reason we want that really specific information is because of requests for information or requests for reporting data on like level of detail of the sort of legislative districts. So we have a lot of information, obviously, on which county the project it is. That's easy. But we've been getting requests for like a breakdown of project locations by watershed and legislative district, and that's where we need like very specific address points. And is that correct to you?
Yeah. So if that address is red, that means that the contract has been saved, but the address has not truly been verified. So just to the right of that text box, you can open up the pop-up. There'll be a mini map and you can drop a point there. Rita, if you still have any questions about that, maybe we can stay on after for a second and we can help you work through that a little bit more.
And then we've got another question from Ellen that says, I've not looked at the extra training information. This morning I went into the program and added a work site. Does it matter if the properties are larger than the project site? For example, the farm is coming up as 3 parcels totaling 300 acres, but the project is only a small portion of the work site.
I don't think that should matter as long as that work site is, at the correct location. I'm not sure if that's a question directly related to data validity or maybe more just work sites themselves.
This is Ellen. I guess the question is the areas might come up a lot larger than intended. So this, it's showing 300 acres because that's the parcel data, but I can't change the parcel size. So, they'll show a project at 300 acres, but in reality, it's a much smaller area. And if that's okay, that's fine. Just wanted to
Yeah,
point
well,
that
that's
out.
right, because the drawing of work sites is kind of twofold, where you first select the parcels as a whole, and then you can go in and draw in the smaller work sites. So that's you're actually, that's exactly as expected, I think, Ellen.
Okay, I may need additional help then off this. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we can help with that. And I also have Ellen, I had created, when we originally launched Worksites, I had created a tutorial video that also explains it. So this is a 2-step where first you select the tracts, and that's those 3 parcels totaling 300 acres. And then you can select which one of them are the work site itself. And we can check in with the FCC about this as well, if they have additional things. But at this point in the ACAP reporting tool, that kind of is the limit of the information. Like, by my understanding, it is okay if it is more than documented more than the area. We definitely want to know where all of the work sites are. So, for example, I know that there are some projects where there are, or like some contracts for ACAP projects where it is actually several parcels distributed throughout a county, or not necessarily on the location. And we do want all those individual parcels documented so we know across the county where the projects are, not just that, as I mentioned, we were just talking about the individual address point. But I think it is okay if the work site includes more, if the work site in the GIS includes more than the actual project area. The reverse would not be so good. We definitely want to know all of the potential areas, but I think it's okay if there's a little bit of extra. And this kind of is somewhat related to those of you who are getting familiar with the PASS practice manager. We have a way there of selecting the project parcels and then documenting the land units, and then, or sort of land units fields, drawing those out, and then being able to show exactly on those parcels where the BMPs are being drawn. And that's new features that are all in pass right now and are going to be sort of combined into the reporting tool in the future that'll hopefully clarify some of these questions. But for now, feel free to reach out to us. I can also be glad to walk you through the worksite tutorial, and there's also the video online. Does anyone else have any questions for Ben right now? Feel free to unmute.
I do have a quick question here. I just took a quick peek at our list of contracts, and we have quite a few that have no worksite error. But then also looking, some of them don't have a start date entered in there, but there's no error for that.
Yeah, that's a known issue that we couldn't get quite to yesterday. So you'll see that in that dashboard, the table, that you'll see the number that says, like how many are missing a start date, and that number is accurate. But when you go to either that pop-up hover or the data issues table in the contract, specifically that start date, and there's a couple other, I'll get a list for you in a second, that aren't populating there yet. We'll get it sorted out hopefully soon in the next day or two. But that is a known kind of bug right now that's not populating.
Okay, because I just took a peek at that, and yeah, we have quite a bit of work to do here to clean up, but the only error I see on any of ours is the worksite one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the data in the table is completely accurate. The dashboard table is completely accurate. The data that's in the hover pop-ups and the potential data issues table within the contract is having a few omissions right now.
okay, thanks.
Yeah,
That's all.
as we had launched it live, we realized there was an issue and couldn't fix it within the past 24 hours, but it will be fixed soon. We've got the code being worked on right now. And in addition, one thing that we're planning, like Ben already mentioned, these additional sort of features and then checks that will be going in for the farm type operation and organic checkbox. And so once we get a few more of these things done, we're planning to probably send each district an email list of the issues that are known. And then when the contract list will also be accurate at that point, to give you all a checkpoint of reminders. So this webinar is really to introduce you all to the concept and to start explaining how to fix these potential data issues that we flagged. But we're not expecting you all to hop on and fix everything right this instant. We know that there's a lot of things, I have a whole backlog of bugs that I've been working on unrelated to these. This is really, as Ben said, a factor of the tool being built as you all were already using it. And a lot of things that we added and at the time did not have checks in place to make sure that things were required and things that changed. And so we're really trying to get a checkpoint to get good data for you all and for the SEC. We're getting to a point in the ACAP program where people are asking for success stories and all this sorts of stuff. And we want to make sure that your data is accurate to what you've actually done and, reflects the great work that you're doing. Does anyone have any more questions about the datability right now? Feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I have a question. When we are trying to do a work site and we put an address in, it relocates it spatially in the map, but it's not anywhere near the project, and we can't figure out where we're at in the county. And so I don't know if there's any hints or clues how to use that so we can get ourselves in the general area of proximity, and then we can hone in, but we just don't know where we're at.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think we found yesterday when moving things from kind of our testing area to the version that you all see. There is an issue where that saved address location that you select is not being transferred to the work sites. So there is another kind of address text box within the worksite interface that I think should work, but we are planning on hooking up the address location that you indicate on the main contract page and hook it up right to the worksite editor so that you don't even have to think about it. So you may notice that it's still a little clunky for a couple more days, but we should be able to fix that relatively soon as well.
Yeah, no, so what we did do is we went into the work site and I dropped down on that dialog box and put the
Mhm.
work site in, and that's where it relocated to our unknown location.
Hmm.
And so we weren't using it off of the contract address. We went into the work site, into a work site page, put it in the search box there, and it did relocate it. But again, I'm not sure where we're at.
We'll have to take a deeper dive into that, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
letting us know.
Could you send Ben and I, or just the ACAP GIS support email, a quick note on which contract that was it's happening for you,
Sure.
and
Yeah, and
which
where would
address?
where would you like me to send that to?
Oh, you can send it to ACAP GIS support at psu.edu.
Perfect. Thank you for your
This
help.
one right here. This
Thank
email.
you.
Yeah, because we'll take a look at that. It's good to have direct examples of if you can send us the contract name and address that you're trying to put in. And all right. Well, I'm gonna go through my slides. Give you all just a quick quarterly reporting reminders and also some updates on our whole suite of other ACAP GIS tools that we work on, and then we'll have time for more questions. So, per usual, it's quarterly reporting time. Today is the deadline for the Q4 2025 quarterly reports. We've had some bugs in the quarterly reports that I fixed earlier last week. So we had an issue where for about 14 districts, the starting balance was showing up as for their quarterly report for Q4 was showing up as $0 again. And I got that fixed. So if you were experiencing that issue, you should be good to go. Although I know that I'm working with some individual counties on some other quarterly reporting sort of calculation and rounding error issues. The SEC is processing replenishment requests from previous quarters. And also right now, the SEC is working on processing the advances from the Clean Stream Funds 2025, 2026. Those, like when we get through the presentation, we can talk more about that for questions folks might have about that. But as of now, like since those are going out now from all the things that happened in the fall with the state budget, et cetera, and processing, that means that they're going to likely be entered by you all in your Q1 2026 quarterly report. So that's an unusual scenario that we are going to try and figure out and share more information on. But as of right now, that is also being added into our ACAP GIS reporting tool, like right now, that we're adding that into being displayed in the quarterly reports, if that makes sense. We just are entering all those allocations and advanced numbers to be there. So overview here is that, yes, it's quarterly report due date, but if you are having any struggles with your quarterly report, please reach out to me or the SEC. I've got a lot of backlog of things that I'm working through. And for most districts, if you're behind on your quarterly report right now, it's not on you, it's on me and the bugs that we're experiencing. So don't stress too much about that on your end, but do reach out to me. I'm processing. And if you are having issues that aren't related to bugs, please also reach out to your SEC regional coordinator and contact them to figure out how you can address those things. I've spoken in a lot of our previous quarterly report webinars about the quarterly report process. And through that sort of deep dives that are available on recordings and slides that have already been posted to our support site, I've gotten some questions in recent months from districts where we then took really like one-on-one meetings, spent a lot of time going back through previous quarterly reports and addressing issues. So I'm just going to plug some of those things again to help those of you who might be having issues or might have issues that you don't realize to help you improve. Again, this is like a add-on to data validity in its own way. The really main thing here that we're continuing to emphasize to folks is that your quarterly report income and expenses are all about what was taken into or out of your district ACAP bank account in this quarter. So not just like what was in your general fund, if you spent money out of your general fund, and then in this quarter, and then in next quarter, you're going to take money from your ACAP account and put it into your general fund to balance those books. It has to be in this quarter. So like I've seen some issues with folks not realizing that because it can get really complicated as your QuickBooks just trying to balance everything, and sometimes the replenishments that you're getting from the SEC go into your general fund, and then you're sort of reimbursing yourself for expenses out of the general fund, and then taking a portion of that replenishment from the SEC, putting it into your ACAP bank account. Essentially, a lot of the numbers won't necessarily be super clear cut. So I encourage you all to, check that over, make sure it's really what you're documenting in your quarterly report is all about what actually happened out of your ACAP account that quarter. And that's really the gist there. And the other thing to check and really make sure, because this is where we've gotten some recent questions where we're doing deep dive with some districts to go back and fix previous quarterly reports, is every quarter you need to make sure your ending balance in the GIS quarterly report matches your bank account ending balance. Some folks sometimes are checking their QuickBooks bank account ending balance, which is okay as long as your QuickBooks bank account ending balance, what you've documented in QuickBooks, matches your bank account. But we've seen when you're trying to, reconcile and match all three of those, sometimes there becomes issues. So that is really crucial each quarter to check that, confirm, and do not submit your quarterly report until you've verified that. There are some scenarios that we worked through with individual districts where they had lingering discrepancies that are known, and we can document that in the quarterly report. There's a section in the activity report to document that. Other scenarios. So that can be okay as long as we on the GIS team and the SEC regional staff know about that, and that you at the district know about it, and then we can reconcile. But this is really crucial. And the other note here is our replenishments. One thing that's been added to the quarterly report, like I just mentioned, as we were working through the CSS funds 2025-2026 fiscal year, we've added that box to the quarterly report. It's currently 0 for you all. We're working on adding to the live site really actually like today and tomorrow the allocations, the advances that the SEC is currently processing, and that will then be in your quarterly reports for the future. So for Q1, unfortunately, right now, we're going to figure out how we're handling that. And another note here is about your Harrisburg funds as we're going, as you all are processing through those Harrisburg funds, just an additional note that from my understanding from previous information from the SEC, those Harrisburg funds need to be spent by June 30th of 2026. Last thing here on the quarterly report reminders is that if your SEC advance that you're trying to enter does not match the unreported advance, please reach out to us. I just got a question about this that I'm going to be processing and figuring out where there was a rounding error, and so the advance is not matching and we need to fix it in the GIS, but that's the thing that could hold you up. And so that's a thing to reach out about if you're having any issues with that. On the other hand, I sometimes get questions from folks about the quarterly report related to their replenishments. You are allowed to submit a SEC replenishment amount that is less than your unreported replenishments. That's because the unreported replenishments is a total of all the sort of replenishments that are not yet processed by the SEC and not yet received by the district. So you might get several checks that sort of combine there to create a total number in your unreported replenishments. And maybe you've received like a SEC replenishment for $1,000 and you actually have $5,000 in your unreported replenishments. It's okay to just submit the amount that you actually received that quarter in your SEC replenishment, and you'll get a little pop-up saying like, hey, these numbers don't match for your replenishment. And that's, in that case, is okay because the total is being reflected in the unreported replenishments. Another reminder here is that your uncommitted balance at the bottom there in the spending status does not include any sort of planning out of upcoming admin, tech assist expenses, contract amendments, or future contracts. So just remember to budget for that in your own documentation. And so I've mentioned already several of the bugs that we've been working on recently and bugs that we are continuing to work on. One thing we just got fixed this week is that we'd been having some lingering issues with approvals for amendments over 20% of the original contract amount. And then, as I mentioned, in early January, we fixed another quarterly report data issues that was just impacting some counties. So those are two bigger bugs that we fixed recently. Now that we've got those dealt with them, going on to some errors that are impacting individual districts, including some lingering amendment issues that seem to be related to that amendment approval bug, and then quarterly reporting rounding errors. And then I also have some notes about, it seems like some counties are potentially having some issues with deliverables. So I also have notes to reach out to them. And one thing that is coming soon as part of our sort of CSS funds 2025 is a new allocation history viewer. If you are familiar with the Dirt and Gravel Roads GIS tool, that's a feature from there that we're implementing in the ACAP reporting tool. It should be in this week, and that'll allow you to view your list of allocation through the years. One thing I'm reminding folks of, I mentioned this in the last quarterly reporting webinar, that we published an ACAP dashboard. This is available at the link here, and I'm working on adding it to be embedded within the CACAT website and hopefully linked on the State Conservation Commission website. So lots going on there, but just a reminder, this is something that this link you can share with your stakeholders, and you can view yourself to sort of see overview of ACAP information that is pulled from the ACAP reporting tool. But since members of the public and other stakeholders do not have logins to the ACAP reporting tool, this is a place for folks to be able to see the status of what the great work that you all have been doing. One thing that has been a huge project that we've been working on, but does not really directly relate to the ACAP reporting tool right now, is the past practice manager. Many of you are going through past certification training, and the watering systems training. Just the first session of that was in early December, and then there's another coming up in late January. So we did a round of updates to the past practice manager in early December and are currently working on more updates before early January. So this included more complicated symbology, additional features, and we have more improvements that are coming soon. And one last sort of plug here, and change is more a process-related change. I've gotten a lot of questions from folks about trainings and how to train new users in particular, and we're making a change to the process. Previously, it was more come as you are and come to these webinars and schedule one-on-one things with me. But from here on out, when you hire new ACAP staff or financial managers, etc., anyone who needs an ACAP GIS account at your district, before they can actually receive that user account, they're going to need to schedule a 1-hour quick training with me, just like an introductory training. I'll create their user account for them there. We'll do it via Zoom. I have a bookings page here, and I'll share the link to that as well. This is really to just help, since we've been getting questions about stuff, and the tool is a lot. I know it took me a while, even when I started, to figure out everything that's going on in the tool. And so to help you all make more efficient use of your time, those of you who are already familiar with the tool, I'm not going to make you go back with it. You're welcome to schedule training with me as a bonus if you want to, but really for any new people, to help get them set up to understand what's going on in the tool, they're going to need to schedule just a quick training with me. And then on that bookings page, I also added tool support meetings, just to help people be able to quickly set up meetings with me. So all this information is on the ACAP support website. I've got a GIS calendar there that has my open office hours. And then on my contact card there's a link to my bookings link as well. And as a reminder, my open office hours are most Tuesdays from 11 to noon. You can always call me. The best way to get in touch with me is usually the open office hours or emailing the ACAP GIS support email address. And then, of course, we have our support website there.